gathers our community to celebrate women who are blazing trails, breaking barriers, and creating change as entrepreneurial leaders. This year, although dinner will not be served in the traditional sense, we are thrilled to serve up an evening of inspiration extended far beyond our physical campus to our global Babson community. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our current and prospective students, alumni, faculty, staff, parents and friends, Seawell, and Women's Leadership Scholars, our WIN Growth Lab entrepreneurs, and the inaugural cohort of Babson's Black Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program. We are thrilled to have you all in our presence this evening, and I think you all should give yourselves a round of applause. In a few moments, you will have a chance to hear from a dynamic mother-daughter founding team who, without tech backgrounds, have blazed trails in the male-dominated tech startup scene. And later this evening, from a young entrepreneurial leader at the helm of a multi-million-dollar brand with an editorial mission to view everything through the lens of inclusivity. These women truly exemplify the Blank School's vision to advance and amplify values-driven entrepreneurial leadership. In addition to hearing from these phenomenal leaders, you will also have an opportunity to meet and engage with each other through the Mixtroz platform. Hopefully you all have downloaded by now or check out the link in the chat. It's a bridge to authentic, meaningful connections to inspire action for positive change as inclusive entrepreneurial leaders like all of you with us tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. It is my pleasure to introduce the fabulous Kerry Schrader and the very dynamic Ashlee Ammons. Named to Entrepreneurs Magazine inaugural list of 100 powerful women in 2019, Kerry Schrader and Ashlee Ammons are the co-founders of Mixtroz, a platform designed to simplify and improve business networking. Their company, which you will experience, uses customized feature and real-time data to optimize your networking experience. In 2019, the team closed $1 million round of funding, making them the 37th and 38th Black females in the US ever to close $1 million+ seed round of funding. Since then, they have demonstrated the power of family, resiliency, and entrepreneurial thought and action to speed up as the world slows down. Please join me in welcoming Kerry Schrader and Ashlee Ammons.
Well, I was gonna say, I now want to be your friend, like you're like your real friend. So we'll have to talk about that afterwards. But hello, everybody! It is such a pleasure to be here. I have to tell you, I speak at universities all over the place, and I am so happy to be at Babson because I already know how together you young women are. And the reason I know that is because many of you have already hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'm gonna get back to you. So just know that. You guys knew I was coming to speak at that dinner, and you took the initiative, and that is what this is all about. Being an entrepreneur is about initiative. It's about going for it. It's about getting started, and you have already demonstrated that to me, so we are so excited to be here. So my co-founder, Kerry, who is also my mom, you will hear us go back and forth between co-founder and mom, is going to kick off this presentation this evening. And what we're going to do is we just want to give you guys some practical words on the journey that we've had thus far so that hopefully it inspires you as you guys go forward in your journey. That's the entire point of this. So Mom, if you want to give a little bit of overview information about Mixtroz, that would be fantastic before we get started.
Well, hello, everybody. I certainly it's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. And one of my favorite topics is Mixtroz and how Mixtroz works. And hopefully you've already taken the advice to go ahead and use that link and download and start the process. You can also access Mixtroz on your smartphone device by using Disrupt 2020. To access it as well. So once you get into the mix, you will create a virtual name tag, which is simply your name and email address, and of course, a selfie, which is sometimes harder for my generation to do than your generation, but I've gotten pretty good at it myself. Once you do that, you'll come to a question bank of 10 questions that your organizer, Valerie, I assume, has customized for you. They are very easy. I bet that most of you are already done, even while I am talking, simple to do. Once you are done with that, once it is activated, you will be prompted to join the mix. And you'll note that at the top of the Join the Mix page is join your virtual group, which you will join the group, and it will put you in a private chat room with the rest of your group members. If you're doing it from your PC, be sure to turn off your audio portion for Zoom when you go over to the Webinex.
She said Zoom and Webinex. She means WebEx, y'all. This is mamas and daughters.
Yeah, well, guess what? They understood what I meant. Turn it off and then go over to your next browser page, and you will be put into your groups and be able to actively interact with them. You'll see icebreakers are available in that green bar, as well as why you were put in that group. And so really make the most of a great situation that Babson has set you up to meet some new people, kick off the conversation, and enjoy your evening. Again, thank you, and thank you to my daughter to allow me to speak for 4 minutes.
Yes, I was going to say, and y'all, she just went over her speaking time, so we're going to talk about this afterward. So let's kick this off, everybody. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about resilience. That is a theme that is going to trend not only this evening, but I do believe for the rest of the year and as we look into 2021. If you have made it to this point in 2020, I think by definition, you are resilient, because no matter what was going on in your life, there were things where you had to adjust, you had to pivot, you had to plant, and things just didn't go the way that we thought they were going to go this year. So welcome to the year of resilience. Do you remember back in early 2020, January 26th was the date when we thought that this was going to be the worst thing that happened in 2020. I do. I was at the gym when this happened, and I sat in my car for an hour afterward because I was devastated. My background is in basketball, and I was just like, oh my goodness. But then quickly, the year actually turned out to be more like this. And this caused a lot of confusion, a lot of disruption. There are a lot of things going on, not only in the US, but all around the world, which have uniquely touched us all. Let's talk about the big two. The big two are these two. We are facing maybe the two greatest pandemics of our time. We are in a fight for equal rights for everyone, equal access for everyone. And then, of course, there's also a health crisis going on, which is very scary. And if you're paying attention to the news, it looks like we might be ramping back up. And all of that can be, for lack of a better word, anxiety inducing. Let me give you a little bit of context on me. I think that this has a lot to do with why I am here. This has a lot to do with why I am here to speak with you all this evening. So I am a Black woman. And just so you know, Valerie, I'm hearing a tiny bit of feedback from somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that. There we go. It was my mom. Wait, we got the culprit, y'all. Can I just say, y'all, working with my mom has been the best. She is an esteemed professional, 25 plus years as a global HR executive. She took this jump to be a startup founder, yet Zoom, WebEx, muting her microphone, she has trouble.
Okay, all I'm going to say is that's great. But as you all listen to Ashlee, that education piece, the 25-year-old background in HR paid for all of that in cash. Go ahead and I will mute.
Okay, wonderful. So let me give you guys a little bit of context. I just said a big statement. So privilege is something that we have been talking about. We always hear the phrase white privilege, but I'm here to talk to you about Black privilege, because that is something that I myself have benefited from. And let me explain what that means. So when I was growing up, I came into a multicultural family. So that's my family over here. So this is mom, brother. This one actually doesn't belong to us, but we love him. stepsister, stepfather. Because of this, I've always had a unique worldview, and I really have never seen color. I know that sounds trite, but I really haven't. As long as you're a good person, I don't care who you are or where you come from, I am glad to have a conversation with you. And because of that family upbringing and the fact that I was able to watch my mother go through her second degree, attaining her second degree, a master's degree, get a 60% pay increase after achieving that master's degree, and become the primary breadwinner of our household, and my father became the stay-at-home dad, I have always had a flip-flop view of the world and what was possible for women. I just knew if we put our mind to it, we could do it. Fast forward to my education. I went to a small liberal arts school in Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out to Baldwin Wallace University. And again, that put me in an area of privilege. You heard what my mom just said. She paid for my college education in cash, which means I graduated without any debt, which allowed me to go forward. The other thing that I'll tell you is when I was in my undergrad experience, this is why Mixtroz is so important, y'all. So you guys see that, you see me sitting there with LeBron James, and I know you're thinking, that's interesting. How did that happen? It happened very simply. I collided with a classmate of mine. He was a white male. He looked nothing like me. Didn't think our personalities were alike at all, but we took the time to get to talk to one another. After one conversation with this fellow student of mine, he sent an email on my behalf, and 3 weeks later, I became LeBron James' first intern. That's it. That's the end of the story. Connection is king. Networking and connectivity is literally everything. That's why we're going to send you into those awesome Mixtroz groups after we get done with this part of the presentation. So again, privilege there. And then finally, I know you see this stat on the slide. Single Black women have a median wealth of less than $100, guys. Less than $100. For me, I went on to New York City. I hustled my way from an executive assistant up to director of events at a luxury hospitality company in just about 5 years. And by the time I was in my mid to late 20s, I was already making north of 6 figures as a single woman in New York City. So again, all of that privilege that I have been exposed to, I have certainly benefited from. But it's even deeper than what I just explained to you. That privilege that was going to be poured on my life, that was actually going to influence my entrepreneurial journey, it actually starts before my mom. It starts right here. So what we're actually looking at here is, this is the plantation that my family comes from. It is less than 2 hours from where I'm sitting right now in Birmingham, Alabama. So what actually had to happen for my mom and I to be able to take this entrepreneurial journey, to be able to be in this journey for so long, not have an income, work off or live off savings rather, was this right here. And what this is my family got out of this plantation. They moved up north during the Great Migration to Detroit and Cleveland. My grandfather then got a good job at U.S. Steel. He was a steel worker, and he was able to put 4 children through college, including my mom. So then my mom passed that blessing on to me. And that's all of the things that actually had to happen for my mom and I to be able to start an entrepreneurial journey in 2014 when we came up with the idea for Mixtroz. So now let's take a look at this. This is a really nice chart. You see how nice and linear this chart is? This is a 3-year timeline to what having a startup should look like. You go from R&D to being established in 3 years. The journey's not like this, y'all. It looks nothing like this. Like this right here is a farce. So what I'm going to tell you is I dissent from that chart that we just saw, okay? I really dissent from that chart that we just saw. And here's why. Your startup journey, your entrepreneurial journey, whatever it is that you decide to do to change the world, which you're at Babson, right? So you're probably going to change the world. But it's going to look nothing like that chart. There is going to be zigs and zags and ups and downs, and it's going to be all over the place. It's going to drive you to a brink within your sanity, and you're going to think that you have no more to give. But then something's going to happen, and you're going to realize that you stayed the course in your journey for good reason. So this is a more accurate representation of the startup journey. Note that I have stopped our journey right here because in 2020, after 6 years in this business, this is still the stage where we are. And you know what? That's okay. My journey is not linear. Our journey is not linear. It doesn't look like anybody else's journey. But what we do know today is that the journey that we've had so far has prepared us for what is prepared for us. I skipped a little bit ahead. That's my next slide, but I really like that quote. So let me break this down for you all a little bit, just so you guys get an idea of what a startup timeline actually looks like for what we were considered at the beginning of this journey, which is a quad outsider. That is Black, female, non-technical, tech co-founder. My mom has something to say. I knew you would. Go ahead.
It takes me a minute to come off of mute, but I add the fifth. I'm also a non-millennial. So as you engage your parents or aunts and uncles, just know that that fifth thing stays out there, is out there, and it's real.
Yes, it is. So my mom is a quint outsider. What I will say, though, for those of you who may be looking for a co-founder at some point, don't sleep on women over 40, because women over 40 had to grow their career at a time before Me Too, Us Too, Them Too, Black Lives Matter, and all of that. They just know how to get stuff done. That's why my mom's my co-founder. We're not just in a family business because it looks nice. We're in a family business because it's strategic. So back to this little chart over here. We came up with the idea for Mixtroz in 2014. Between 2015 and 2016, that was our how the heck do you build an app? Because like I said, we don't have technology backgrounds. How do you build an app? How do you get it to market? Wait, even before that, how do you go get developers? You know how we figured all that stuff out, y'all? We went to the school of Google. Okay, now y'all are at Babson, so you got better resources than we had. But we, at the time, we went to the school of Google to figure out every single thing that we needed to know for this business, because guess what? That information is all out there. It is up to you to put in the time to figure out where it is and get the answers that you need and start making connections. I will say my mom, over the course of this journey, because when you become an entrepreneur, the rest of your life doesn't stop. My mom, over the course of this journey in 2015, was diagnosed with breast cancer. I bring this up to say health is everything. So first you have to take care of yourself mentally, physically, and otherwise, and then you can do the awesome things that you're going to do to make the world a better place. I will shout out that my mom is cancer-free today. Between 2016 and 2018, we had a product in market, but it was going real slow, because I know you guys have seen the stats on what it is like to be a woman, and specifically a woman of color raising funding. We get some crazy amount, like less than 0.0006% of all the funding. But we stayed our course. We were able to raise friends and family capital, $200,000, that lasted us an extraordinary amount of time, about 3 years. But we stayed the course when things were slow, when nobody was worried about Mixtroz, when there was nothing that was Instagram post worthy. We stayed the course. And then that gets us to 2018, where accelerator program in Birmingham, Alabama, heard about my mom and I, invited us to apply for the accelerator. We got in, we got a cash infusion from them, and then we were kind of off to the races. We completed the accelerator program at the top of 2018 between January and April. We then found out that the Rise of the Rest pitch competition was coming through Birmingham, Alabama. That pitch competition is under Revolution Fund. Steve Case, the founder of AOL, I hope y'all know what that is. You might not, because it's been a while since AOL was like a thing, but he funds this competition. And wouldn't you know it, my mom and I won that competition, which means we got a $100,000 investment from Revolution Fund. It took us 6 months to the day to raise another $900,000 and change. And that was the moment that we became the 37th and 38th Black female founders to ever complete a more than $1 million raise for a technology, a startup company. So in 2019, we finally were able to take that capital and put process behind hustle. So all those years where we were hustling and just doing and figuring out, and there was no rhyme and reason behind it, we now had to go back and make that actually work like a business. So that's what we did. And so then after that, we came into 2020, y'all, and we were like, oh, this is our year. Things are off to the races. And then what happened, y'all? Resilience is about to come back into this story. So as I said, understand that life prepares you for what is prepared for you. And let me define now what that means. At the beginning of 2020, again, off to the races, but before March of 2020, our flagship product was just based on live events. And so, in March, the entire live event market got decimated. But We had been there before. We already knew what it was like to work with no money. We had done that for the first several years of our business. Not a problem. We planted, we pivoted, we got a virtual product to market by May, and we started having customers come onto the product. Between July and September of this year, we experienced 300% growth working with awesome customers like Babson College, like Running USA, like Southern Company, like Emory University, Johns Hopkins, all kinds of things. And then today, I'll tell you, less than a month ago, we opened another round of funding, a bridge round of funding to pour gasoline on our momentum. And as of today, we are about 80% done. So that means 800K done, 200K outstanding. Last raise took 6 months. It's going to look like this raise is about to take less than 1 month. So when I tell you resilience is a real thing, it is. Stay the course for your journey, because you never know what is prepared for you until you've done so. So what I'll leave you with, and see if my mom has anything to add, maybe an amen, maybe she wants to play on a piano, an organ or something.
Organ. Amen.
Amen. So many amens. Y'all, Chadwick Boseman was another thing that happened this year that we were all not ready for. But I want to read this quote to you from a commencement address that he gave at Morehouse. And I look at this quote anytime that I am looking toward inspiration, and I feel like it is so appropriate for the journey that you all are about to take. So here we go. I don't know what your future is, but if you are willing to take the harder way, the more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that's ultimately proven to have more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it. This is your time. Everybody on this call, this is your time. I'm like, go forth, conquer, connect, and do it. That's what I got for you today.
Maybe somebody told her this was a commencement speech.
Wait, y'all. Wait.
Go forth, class of 2021.
This is
do your thing.
This is our This is our contact information, y'all. We are very easy to get a hold of. I appreciate the hustlers that reach out. So if you have a question, don't hesitate. You can also hit us on Instagram. So with that, Valerie, we'll give it back to you for any direction that you have, and then we can certainly get into the Mixtroz portion of this event.
This was great. Thank you so much. Thank you for representing me well, Ashlee, and making me proud to spend that cash money most
You're
of
welcome.
the time. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashlee and Kerry. So now we're going to go ahead and try the software. So if you want to, I think we have many people already in. And so I'll probably just give a quick minute for any last minute attendees that want to get in there. And then I will go ahead and create the groups.
Awesome.
And you'll be able to, and Ashlee, if I create the groups and we have latecomers, they can still pop in, I believe, the way I've set it up. So.
They sure can. They sure
All
can.
right.
Wait, I like this. You see, y'all, Valerie's using our software. She don't even need us. We don't even need to be here.
All right. So I hit create groups. And so Ashlee, at this point, they can just head over to Mixtroz and they'll be put into their groups.
That's right. You sure can. So everybody now, you should actually be seeing on your screen, it should let you know that your group is ready. So you can check in, and then it is going to invite you to join the virtual meeting space. So you guys can go ahead and pop in there. And then Valerie, when are we coming back to WebEx?
And so we'll come back at 6:40. And
Okay.
so you'll have about 15 minutes together. And poke around in there. You'll have some brainstorm questions to get the conversation started. And you can also get a sense on why your group was paired. So I believe in the top right corner, you'll see those features.
You're right.
So you can poke around in there. And then, of course, after the session, you have the ability to request contact information from anybody that you met with. So make sure you take a look at those features while you're in the group today.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you and enjoy. And I'm here on chat if anybody has any questions.
Oh, also, if anybody has questions as well, you can also go to mixtroz.com. My bestie Alex is over there, man in the chat.
Knew it would be. Yeah.
Charlesetta Ford. Yes, girl.
Yeah.
Yes. Anna Valesco. Yes. Thank you. Amazing. Agree. Wait, I love you guys. Can I just say again, you guys who are at Babson, you guys are not playing, and I appreciate y'all. Like, keep this same level of electricity that you got going the whole ride through. It will take you so far.
You all have amped my daughter and co-founder up. So I'm
Oh my
going to put
gosh.
her to work tonight. I'm like, while you are just Zooming, we might as well knock out a couple more projects this evening.
That's
And
right.
what I will say is please keep an eye on our social media at Mixtroz. Across all social media, there is some pretty big stuff coming out later this week and the following week. And what a ride this has been. And again, appreciate the invitation from you, Val, to allow Ashlee to preach a whole sermon and a commencement all in one.
My goodness.
So, hi everyone, my name is Susanna D'Souza. I'm a senior Sewell Scholar at Babson College and president of the Sewell Student Executives Board. I just want to thank you, Ashlee and Kerry. I loved how user-friendly Mixtroz was and how, at least with our group, we were all from different walks of life, but we were still able to connect. Your entrepreneurial story today is truly remarkable. As I finish my Babson journey this December in a year that has definitely been marked with uncertainty, your message of resilience, inclusive leadership, and the power of connection and community gives me hope and inspiration, and I'm sure it gave a lot of people out today the same feelings as we begin our own careers, and I begin my own career in technology at Dell. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you all for having us. So glad that you enjoyed the experience and look forward to connecting with those that would like to connect. Keep doing your thing. And seriously, Beyonce wasn't kidding. Women rule the world.
That's it. Wait, that's it. Thank you all so much. It was our pleasure. Everybody enjoy the rest of your evening. And again, you guys can reach out to us. We're not hard to find. Thank you so much, Valerie and Babson.
Thank you very much, Ashlee and Kerry. So happy to have you.
Thank you.
I'm also humbled and honored to introduce Teen Vogue's Lindsay Peoples Wagner, the only Black female editor-in-chief in the United States and a 2020 Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. Beginning her career as assistant in the fashion closet, her accelerated path to editor-in-chief has been marked accolades and honors throughout her career, which includes reporting and editorial roles at Oprah Magazine, Style.com, The Cut, and New York Magazine. A prominent voice for diversity and inclusion in the fashion industry, she has recently co-founded the Black in Fashion Council, which provides benchmarking for corporate policies pertinent to the inclusivity of Black employees and an equality index score for fashion and beauty brands and the media that covers them. Tonight, Lindsay, who has shaped Teen Vogue to be a model for inclusivity, social values, and community, will share her view of our new societal landscape, where Black Lives Matter and other societal movements have raised the bar for brands. As consumers, especially young consumers, are calling companies to task, demanding action, and holding them accountable, Dr. Anjali Ball, Associate Professor of Marketing and a core member of the Babson College Dean of Faculty Inclusive Excellence Committee, will join her to discuss what brands must do and not do to authentically reflect and connect with customers, employees, stakeholders, and their communities. So please join me in welcoming Lindsay Peoples Wagner.
Hi, everyone. As you said, my name is Lindsay Peoples Wagner. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to talk about my journey for the next 20 minutes or so. So just bear with me here, but I am super, super honored to be with you guys today, even if it's just virtually. As she said before, I'm the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue and co-founder of the Black in Fashion Council. And I think, Valerie, if you wanted to pull up the PDF I sent you just to walk you guys through, I think it's always really helpful to share parts of my journey and a lot of those things that I think have informed what I'm doing and why I'm doing those things. So I'm ready, Valerie.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share. I just had a slight, just trying to get it into the full screen mode for you here. That's a slide. Okay, hold on 1 second. Share. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Make it full.
Okay, so these are just, obviously a lot of the recent covers that we've done at Teen Vogue. I think I really wanted to share this first because it's really, I think, a comprehensive and a really nice view of, I think, how Teen Vogue has really grown and changed. I am originally from Wisconsin, and so a lot of what I thought to be as media or for fashion, definitely changed over time. You can go to the next one. Oh, yep, scrolling too much. There we go. I think the first thing that I really wanted to start is to talk about really inclusivity being through the lens in which you see everything. I think we've all seen this year that, Black Lives Matter and a lot of these moments have really, I think, caused a huge reckoning for brands, right? But I think for me, it's inherently part of who I am. Inclusivity is really, I like to say it as the lens in which we see everything, because everything that we touch, everything that we do, we think about that in an inclusive manner. And I think a lot about, it being more than a seat at the table and it being something that allows people to feel seen and heard and their voices being amplified. And I think a lot of my position in this has been rooted in a lot of ways of trying to make sure that inclusivity isn't just a box that is being checked for people, and that it is something that they are inherently and holistically really trying to come at in a different way. In being, what people like to say in an intro about me, that I'm the only Black woman in a lot of spaces. But what I think people don't realize is that often this work falls on people of color, women of color specifically, to actually implement all of these things. And I think a lot about Michelle Obama's quote when she was talking about, it's not enough just to have a seat at the table or just to be grateful for that seat at the table, and that what you really should be doing is using that seat at the table to push and to make change and to shake that table. And a lot of the work that I've done has really been, I think, pushing that and pushing that line. You can go to the next one. Yep, scrolling too fast. So just a brief about my journey, because I think it's helpful. As I was saying, I'm from Wisconsin, Midwest. I didn't grow up knowing anything about fashion. And I think that's really important to note, because I think a lot of times you see careers in fashion or media or entertainment, and you think like these people must have grown around it. I did not. My foray really into fashion was watching The Hills, and watching Sex and the City, watching Girlfriends, just watching shows that had a lot of fashion in them. And my grandmother took me to a senior citizen center every single summer when I had off of school. And that's really where I learned just about arts and crafts. And I honestly didn't really connect the dots that it could be something bigger until a lot later, which I also really like to share, because I definitely wasn't one of those people that went to college knowing what I wanted to do. I was not one of those people that always knew what I wanted to do. And so I'd like to encourage those people, because even if it comes later, when it comes, it comes. And when it's right for you, you know that. I decided to go to a small art school in Iowa called Buena Vista University because I wasn't sure and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And basically one of my professors, she had said, you really like to write, you like creative things. Like, she was like, I just think you should try it. And she had seen a posting for an internship at Teen Vogue. And so that was actually my first internship, which has been a really full circle moment, because it was actually my first job out of college. And now coming back as editor-in-chief, my third time at the brand, I've been able to actually, I think see the brand grow and change, but also implement a lot of the things as far as inclusivity that I really wanted to. You can go to the next one. So starting out, this part of my life is always funny to think about, because I think that especially when you have a career in fashion or when you're doing a lot of these careers that may be a little bit more in the spotlight, people really glamorize these things as if it is a lot better than it really is. And so for me, actually, you know, when I moved here to New York from from Iowa, and going to school, I was working at Teen Vogue during the day. I was changing mannequins at DKNY at night. And then on the weekends, I was waitressing at a Jewish restaurant. So working 3 jobs, definitely not getting paid any money. And I think one of the things that people don't like to talk about in this is how finances can really affect your production in a job or affect you actually being able to have a lot of these jobs. And so a big hurdle for me starting out was definitely financial, but also I think dealing with classism and elitism, which is a huge theme, I think, this year, especially as well, because, you know, this pandemic has affected everyone, no matter where you come from. And I think even then it was a contrasted experience. And what I think these images really show is like, I was the face, you know, I was the only Black girl then. And there were fashion editors who posted on the right. She was a very popular fashion editor at TNT at the time, who would, you know, post things making fun of homeless people and people who had less than them. And a lot of those situations were really hard for me as a woman of color to deal with, not only because of any racist things, which definitely happened, but also I think just the classism and elitism of actually, you know, I think people want to hire women of color, but then it's like, are you put in a position of success? Are you actually then your voice amplified? Are you actually understood, and different voices from different places really understood? And so I stayed at Teen Vogue for probably 2.5 years, just assisting and styling and trying a lot of different things. As I really wanted to figure out, you know, what my purpose would be in the industry. And I just knew I was always different, but I really wanted to find a place that actually I think made sense and gave me some purpose and intention in it. So then soon after that, I went to style.com, which now basically it's morphed into vogue.com. And that was a place that I started writing a lot. So doing a lot of reviews on shows and reviewing designers, and a lot more writing about what was actually happening in culture and in fashion. You can go to the next one. And that really led me to the cut. But I do think that one pivotal point in that I was at style.com for probably a year. They had a position open up for an editor role. So basically I was an assistant. I was looking to get to an editor role, which is a very big deal because editor role means a living wage. And my boss came to me at the time and she's like, you know, I don't think you're ready for this right now, but I think that once you learn a little bit more, stay here a little bit longer, I think you just need to learn the ways in which you really want to change the industry, because you really want to do different things than other people. And your meaning and your purpose for being in the industry isn't just, you know, to make pretty pictures. And so she ended up hiring somebody else for that role. And I like to share that story because I remember just bawling, crying, and freaking out when I didn't get that job. But staying there really led me to the path that I'm on today. And it led me to being at the cut because she was the one who came to me probably 6 months later. And she was like, you know what, I think you're ready. You worked so hard. And I actually found out about a job that I think you'd be interested in. So then when I got to the cut, I was really ready to carve out my niche of things that I wanted to do. And so that really started with me shooting, well, these people were up and coming back then, but not now, and shooting talent and really being on the pulse of saying, like, these are people of color or people doing really interesting things that other publications aren't giving a platform to. One of the biggest things I think people don't realize with the power of fashion and media is that we readily choose who's cool, who's worthy of opportunities, who gets to be put on a platform, who gets to be in ad campaigns. All of those things we readily choose. And so if we don't do shoots with people, you know, people aren't talking about them, or maybe a brand won't work with them, or, you know, they won't get a certain endorsement deal, or they won't get a role in a movie. And I think yielding that kind of power is really, really important as far as inclusivity, because you want to make sure that different kinds of people are getting these opportunities, right? And that, like, different kinds of people are on covers and in, you know, TV shows and movies and all of those things. So this was one of my first forays into that, and really owning that when I was at the cut. And so I really was obsessed. This was like when I think Insecure only was out maybe its first or second season. And I really wanted to shoot Issa Rae, and this is when Dua Lipa's, before her first album was out, and this is when SZA's first album was out. And this was a big hurdle for me because I saw a lot of brands really shoot, really say that they wanted inclusivity, they wanted diversity, they wanted all the buzzwords, but they weren't making a real effort to be inclusive. And they also weren't making a real effort to shoot people that were different or cool or loan their clones to different people, or really, give opportunities to these people. And so I remember that Issa Rae shoot very well because it was my first shoot that I really was like, I'm just going to do what I need to do, and I'll apologize later, because I reached out to a lot of luxury brands that you guys can probably readily name, and none of them would loan me clothes. And the way that fashion people say when they don't think someone is good enough is like, this person isn't on brand, or they don't have our aesthetic. And I was like, she's talented, Insecure is amazing. She'd already had, profiles in the New York Times. And they were just like, yeah, like, not really for us. And so I went to do a couple store pulls and actually pulled those brands from the stores instead of going directly to the brand, since they denied me, honestly, just to prove them wrong and show them that, Black women deserve to be in luxury clothes. Black women can pull this off. Black women look great in luxury clothing. And that column was really a pivotal moment for me of showing people in the industry that they need to walk the talk in a lot of these things, and not just saying like, we'll care a little bit about this, but, we won't really go farther than the bare minimum, and really showing them the possibilities. You can go to the next one. This was also, I think, a big time for me when I started to write about appropriation and diversity, and having those conversations being normalized, I think is always a really, really big opportunity for companies, because it shouldn't be something taboo or something that people should be afraid to talk about. And I really wanted to take the time, whether it was covering on the left is, when Dapper Dan's design was ripped off by Gucci, and, Prada had their situation with coming out with like different monkey memorabilia, making sure that the industry knew that how these things were inappropriate, but also letting them know like the same care that you take in learning other people's culture or beauty standards, like that has to also be taken with any people of color, right? And I do think that for me, this was a time of really big distinction, and letting people know that if you don't take that same care of learning all different kinds of beauty or all different kinds of cultures, then, you're not a good editor, or you're not worthy of these roles. So like a lot of times my favorite joke, but not really joking, is to talk to beauty editors. And I say, can you tell me the type of curly hair that I have? I know I have braids right now, but usually I have my hair out, and I'll say, tell me what kind of curl pattern my hair is. And if you can't, you're not a good beauty editor, because most beauty editors have only learned European beauty standards, and they really haven't taken the time to say, okay, like here are all the different kinds of curl patterns and different textures and waves and curls and different ways that we should be talking about beauty. And so that same care also needs to be taken with appropriation, giving people credit where it's due, and understanding the history of these things so that they don't have to continue to happen. You can go next. That also led me, I think, just to a lot of features that I would just take the initiative on my own. And that, has led me to a lot of things that I'm doing now with Black in Fashion Council. On the left is this feature that I did called Cowgirls of Color. And that year there were like a ton of different trends on Western and cowboy themed and all that. And I think one of my biggest things has been, especially in fashion, of, letting people know where the history is on these things, but also not whitewashing every single trend. Like every single trend does not come from white people, and we all know that. But I think that fashion doesn't really do a good job all the time of actually providing people with history and context and culture outside of, what they deem to be important enough. And so I chose to shoot these 4 Black cowgirls in Maryland. They're real cowgirls. They've been riding horses all their life. They compete. They're incredible. And I chose to shoot them and feature them in some clothing instead of, just doing it with models from the runway. And that really led me to the piece on the right, was the last piece that I wrote when I was at the Cut, called Everywhere and Nowhere, What It's Like to Be Black in Fashion. That piece, I interviewed over 150 different Black people in the industry and people of color, about just their experiences and how they felt. Very pivotal moment and huge moment for the industry that really led to a ton of conversations. It is crazy to me how critically acclaimed it became, but also just how many people I think that piece has really helped to understand that there were so many different things happening in the industry that I think people have been really scared to speak up about. And I think that's been one of the best things I've seen this year, is people actually, taking companies to task, actually speaking their truth to power and saying, these things aren't okay, these microaggressions are not appropriate. And that piece was really pivotal for me because it also was a lot of, mid to senior level people in the industry that weren't really necessarily friends with each other, worked in all different parts of the industry, whether it be a buyer to a merchandiser to a planner to an editor, to a stylist, and just had all of these similarities of experiences, but weren't even sharing them. And every interview was like a therapy session. Every person I talked to, it was at least for 2 hours. I think an important moment for me, because it was like, well, where do we go from here, and what do I continue to use my platform to do and to make all these changes? So that led me to coming back to Teen Vogue. You can go to the next one. And I think a lot of what I at least want to get across is all of these things can look really cool and glamorous and all of that, but what has sustained me was really always, I'm thinking about what would young Lindsay need, what would little Lindsay need. And this quote is really just a conversation that I had with my mother growing up. I used to have like all these magazine clippings on my wall, and she came into my room one day and she was like, I love this. Like, this is really cool and this is really fun, but you're going to have to change this industry because it's not really made for people like you. And you're going to have to really make things really different. And, continuously I've thought about that conversation. And when I left out of school and really was struggling and working those 3 jobs, I thought a lot about that conversation and about being what I need when I was younger at that time. And that's really led me to a lot of the work that we're doing currently now at Teen Vogue. You can go to the next one. So this is just an example of our Young Hollywood covers. This was really fun for me because Young Hollywood was something that Teen Vogue did when I was an intern and when I was an assistant. And so I was super excited to make this inclusive when I got the chance to actually be in power. So Young Hollywood was always a really, really big deal. And it still is, because it is a determinant for the industry of where they find talent. So if you're in a Young Hollywood lineup, different agents call you, executives, you get roles, you get endorsements, all of those things. And it just gives you a bigger platform, right? But, growing up and reading Teen Vogue, it was only white cisgender people in Young Hollywood. And there were great people like Emma Stone and Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway, like all really big names now were a part of Teen Vogue's Young Hollywood. But the fact that that opportunity was never, basically hardly ever given to any person of color or other marginalized community, to me was such, a missed opportunity. And so I was really excited, to put Yalitza, to put India Moore, to put all these amazing people that were the first to ever be in our Young Hollywood lineup as part of that. And I think that's been a lot of the work of how do we undo all of these things and also, make them moderate and inclusive, but really, bring our audience to light of like what Teen Vogue should really have always been. You can go to the next one. And these are just our recent, another example, our recent September covers. I think a lot about, when we have these conversations publicly or on social media or in the world, and then how do we actually translate that and actually hold ourselves accountable and make sure that we're still part of this conversation, right? So this summer, I went to a ton of different protests and went to one of the biggest ones was a Black Trans Lives Matter protest. And I saw so many different people tweeting and talking about it and all of that. But then when it came to their content, there was nothing. There was crickets. And so it was really important to me to continue that conversation. And so I was really excited to be able to put Monroe Bergdorf, who's on the left, She's an amazing model and worked with L'Oreal. Yari Bergdorf on the right. And that was a really exciting conversation for me to be able to put these two Black women on the cover and talking about their issues, and talking about the trans community and talking about inclusivity in fashion. And to me, it's just harboring again at that point of, you have to keep yourself accountable as a publication, but also you have to keep that same energy. Like just when we were protesting all of these things this summer, like you have to keep that same energy in everything that we do holistically. And that, I think, is why you can tell that inclusivity is just part of what we do at Teen Vogue. You can go to the next one. Yeah, and I mean, this is a fun shoot that we just did also in September, which was like this really popular collective of Black girls on TikTok who've been doing roller skating over the summer. And I think as earlier as when I referenced the appropriation and just making sure to give proper people credit, I've seen so much, even with the advancements of social media, that that there's not the proper people getting credit. And usually those are people of color. And so we did a huge feature on Jalea, since she didn't really get her shine from the Renegade dance. This was just a fun fashion shoot that we did with this collective, because there were a lot of different people talking about, roller skating trends and whatever, but not giving, I think, BIPOC communities the credit that they deserved in that conversation. And so that's just another example of the ways in which like we've made it fun and cool and exciting, but like still something really interesting, but also giving credit where it's due. You can go to the next one. And so that really also, all of this has really led to me starting Black in Fashion Council. It's been exactly 2 years since I came out with that article at The Cut about what it's like to be everywhere and nowhere, Black in fashion. And for me, it was like, 2 years ago, we have shared our narratives and we've talked about all the changes that need to be made. What's the next step? And especially, after George Floyd was murdered, I saw so many brands post their MLK and their Nelson Mandela quote and, say we're going to donate, but then just really go about their day and not actually make changes in their corporate culture or at their schools or in their communities. And so Black in Fashion Council was really my way of actually, taking people to task and also making sure that they knew that they have to be accountable and transparent. One of our biggest things is that, we push that there should be this movement from cancel culture to now just really being about accountability and transparency. A lot of the brands we work with are, just terrified of being canceled and called out on social media. But if you were holding yourself accountable and you're being held accountable and you're transparent about, whether you're missing the mark or whether you're just trying, I think that is really what, I've seen our audience at Teen Vogue and just people in general really want to see. But I will say, with accountability and transparency comes responsibility, and with responsibility comes action. And so that's really where Black in Fashion Council has come into place, because we are partnering with the Human Rights Campaign on a corporate equity index. So that's basically a standard rating to give all different companies. They currently have a CEI, corporate equity index, abbreviated to CEI, sorry. They currently have a CEI out that is specific to LGBTQ plus inclusivity. And so we're mocking on that a little bit, fusing that with also racial and ethnic inclusivity to make sure that these companies are really coming at inclusivity in all different efforts and not just, we gave people MLK Day off. Like, it has to be a lot of different things in so many different ways. You can go to the next one so they can look at something different. And a big thing for us is to move past that performative allyship. This is a good example because I actually really like Jacquemus. But, on the runway, Jacquemus at the top is what the Jacquemus runway looks like. And it's all these beautiful BIPOC women, mostly Black models. And then the bottom right is his entire staff, which is all white people. And we really have moved to making sure the companies are not just doing this performative allyship and making sure that they're putting all these policies into practice. So if they have a policy about, not tolerating microaggressions, or, somebody shouldn't be allowed to say to someone, "Can I touch your hair?" Well, then no tolerance means that person shouldn't work there anymore. We've really been making sure that, people don't just have the front-facing initiatives, that they're actually internally working on those things, that they actually, it's not, even if they have the numbers, so let's say they have 15%, BIPOC employees, what are you actually doing to put those people in a position of success? How are you actually making sure their voices are amplified and supporting them? Are they promoted? Are they paid equitably? All of these things, matter in so many different ways. And you can go to the next one. I think one of the coolest things basically that we're working on with all these companies besides the corporate equity index, is really working on the pipeline. And so we're working on a virtual job fair to, touch base with a lot of different smaller communities and smaller colleges, not just the FITs and not just the big HBCUs. We're working with a lot of different pre-colleges and, programs for kids that have aged out of the foster care system but are really open to creative opportunities. And we're really excited about that virtual job fair to make sure that young BIPOC kids actually know about these jobs in fashion earlier, know about the companies that are really caring about inclusivity and working on it. We also just posted a job board, which has been really exciting to make sure that people of color are seeing all these roles. We're creating a talent network, and we're doing also an industry-wide directory that I'm super excited about to make sure that whether it's a magazine looking for a stylist or a production person, whatever, that inclusivity is really on top of mind for all of these companies. So that's a overview spiel of all of the things. And I think I'm over my time talking, but we've been able to do a lot of different partnerships with brands and designers. We did a partnership with Fred Siegel and different stores to be able to have different Black designers in stores, which has been cool. So that was one of the things that came up too.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for that. That was amazing. It was really inspirational. It was really nice to see how your career progressed. I am so excited to see what comes out of it. And I'm really excited to learn more about the job board because I think that's something that's really useful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
When they told me that you were coming to speak, I was really excited because I will tell you, we have a lot of Babson students who are really interested in the fashion industry. It's one of the most popular concentrations at Babson and certainly something that we go into. And I thought we'd start off with just kind of a general question where maybe you could tell our students a piece of advice, or let's say it this way, one thing you wish you knew when you started your career, and with that, maybe the best piece of advice you got specifically for the fashion industry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different advice. I will say, fashion is, all of these things are super subjective, right? So I do think that you don't have to necessarily get a degree in a certain thing. It's not as stringent as other areas. And I do think that it's really important to intern and to have experiences in all different parts of fashion because there's literally a million jobs in fashion. I think a lot of people tend to think of like, a stylist or an editor. And I love being an editor, but that's because I love being an editor. I think that, there are 100 million different roles and I've tried a lot of them. I interned in PR. I thought in college, I was like, I'm definitely going to be a celebrity stylist, and worked with a few celebrities and it was a no for me. I just think that you have to try all of these things and understand what really works for your personality as well, because I still love styling, but one of the things for me of the celebrity stylist, I realized in interning and working for people that a lot of them, you really have to be at their beck and call. Like you have to basically be with that celebrity all the time. You really can't have a life. And I remember clear as day when I was interning for Rachel Zoe, she was like, if one of these clients calls on Christmas Day, we're going. And I was like, this is not for me. This is not the job for me. And I think you have to try all those things and really understand it to intrinsically know if it's right for you and what you want to do. I do think like one of the things that I wish I knew was that, fashion is not so linear. It isn't just like get this job, get this job, get this job. There are a ton of opportunities, especially now with social media and everything. It isn't so like you have to work at, this magazine or you have to work at this brand. But it also takes a lot longer. I think a lot of times when, I've had friends who work at, who work in, you know, different industries, and it is like, okay, in 2 years you're going to get this promotion, and then in this year you're going to get this promotion. And fashion is not like that at all. You can be in a job for a very long time, and just depending on the brand and their success and all of that, things may not change. And so I do think that you have to be ready for that uphill battle. It's never happened as fast as I wanted it to happen, but it definitely has been a fun ride. So.
So we'll go to a couple of the questions in the chat in just 1 second, because I think we want to get the student questions in. But I do have one question, because I have to ask it as a marketing professor. We spend a lot of time in marketing talking about consumer activism and how consumers can really move brands in a positive way for change and stuff like that. And a lot of our students have had a lot of concerns about just what you spoke about in the beginning, which was, you know, I could put up a great quote and then I don't really follow through on it. So what is some of your feedback, or I'd say recommendations, for people who want to hold brands more accountable and have those brands actually follow through and be authentic in what they're doing, to do more and be better global citizens?
Yeah, I mean, I will say we've signed on 100 brands to Black in Fashion Council. If you look on our site, blackandfashioncouncil.com, we are personally on every single one of those 100 brands, from Tiffany and Cartier to your Gap and H&M. So there's a lot of brands on there. But I will say, if you even look back at their Instagram right now, like what are they posting right now? I think a lot of times in the moment, people are like, this is what we should be talking about, but this should be a movement. This should be something that we are continuously talking about. And that was one of my biggest things. Any brand that signed on to work with us for the Black in Fashion Council, they signed to work with us for the next 3 years. I don't want your commitment just right now. I want it next year and the year after that and the year after that. And I think you can very clearly see that. I mean, what influencers are they working with? What brands are they loaning to? Like if you're looking at other magazines and they're constantly, you know, only loaning, or you only see that brand shot on this certain celebrity, they're not really following up on that. And I think it is, for me, I think especially at Teen Vogue, I understand inherently our readers do only really want to support brands that are aligning with their personal values. I think a couple of years ago, you could still get people like, oh, that brand is really racist and homophobic, but like, it's cute, maybe I'll wear it. And I was never one of those people, but I would see fashion people do that. And then I think now people have definitely, you know, had this reckoning moment of like, oh, wait, like my dollars actually is supporting this brand. And I can't actually support this brand if they don't align with my personal values. And if they don't care about Black Trans Lives Matters, and if they don't care about Black Lives Matter, and they don't care about this pandemic, you know, then I shouldn't be supporting them, whether that be liking their posts on Instagram or following them or, you know, purchasing something with them. And that's been, I think, a really big transition for a lot of people.
Awesome. So I'm just going to ask one more question, I promise, and then I'll pass it on to the students. But my last question is actually related to that, which is, what are some pieces of advice that you would have for our students who may be in situations where they're uncomfortable, but they want to get messaging across in terms of how they can speak to make things better?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it depends on the person. I think it really, you know, there's been times when I was younger that I was afraid to speak up. I think people consider me to be very outspoken now, but it honestly just started to be like, well, either I'm going to put my feet to the fire or I'm not. And I think that, you know, I think about when I started at Teen Vogue, you know, there were, you know, the N-word was thrown out. There was a lot of things that I was really uncomfortable with. And I definitely told people I was uncomfortable with it. But would I say it differently now than I did back then? 100%. But that's because, I was really young and I just said, like, you know, don't say that. That really makes me uncomfortable. But I didn't actually go into, you know, the ways in which that is like incredibly harmful and hurtful. And also I just didn't really feel comfortable because I was really desperate. As I said, like, I didn't come from fashion, so I really needed that job and I didn't want to, you know, piss off my boss or, you know, not, you know, be able to get an opportunity. And I already, didn't, all the other girls, came from money and wore Chanel every single day. And I was just wearing Gap. And so I already was at a disadvantage. So when I did speak up, I always felt like, oh, okay, I'm going to be that girl. And like, they're always going to think of me that way. But I've never regretted it. I've always thought back to those times. And yes, I wish I would have been a little bit more bold, but at least I did say something. And I think you have to do what's best for you. I always think like, if you can sleep at night on it, if you feel good about it and you're like, I can go to sleep at night, like knowing that I did the right thing, that's what needs to be done. And I think it's hard because I think like people of color, we too often have to educate other people on what they shouldn't be saying. And we often have to carry that burden of letting people know what should be happening. But I do think that it is about, finding those moments, but choosing those moments to put your feet to the fire, because it's really exhausting work to tell people what isn't racist and what isn't appropriate. And you're not gonna maybe be in the state of mind to do that all the time. But I think, those moments when you have to speak up. And I hope you guys, feel encouraged and supported in that, because people call me outspoken every day, and now it just rolls off my back and does not hurt my feelings at all.
I'm going to go ahead and pass it. Thank you so much for that to Susanna to ask some student questions.
Thank you so much, Lindsay and Ashlee, for this amazing conversation. We do have a few questions coming in from students. The first one being, for students who want to get into the creative field, what advice do you have for getting your foot into that door?
Pandemic is hard. I think the best way, A, don't DM people because it's just unprofessional. Just don't do it. B, pick literally 3 to 5 people that you're like, I'm obsessed with these people. They're doing this, which is kind of what I think I want to do. And try to find a connector to them, whether that be like someone that works for them or, a direct contact to them, or just engaging with them on social media, not like stalking, just like, liking, commenting different things so that they can just get that hint. Because I do think it's more so about that personal connection more than ever. Even for myself, I get, like 100 random DMs a day. So I don't look at them. And emails, you can forget it. My inbox is always crazy. So I think that it is finding that personal connection or finding someone, but also I do think that there is a lot of people put too much weight on going to the top. And a lot of the people that have helped me have been on the same level as me. A lot of the people that have helped me have been on a lateral level as me. And so don't always just glamorize and glorify the big names or the editors or the people at the top. Maybe look for who works directly for them or who's doing something underneath them, or that, is a mid-level, like that person to kind of make that connection to, because you can't really do internships right now unless it's like a virtual thing. But I do think that finding that personal connection and saying like, hey, like when you guys are starting next spring or whatever, if you need help, I'm available. And I think those people that are always, if you stay ready, you always be ready. Like if you're like, hey, I'm ready, like whenever you guys are, I'd love to help out. Those are the people I think of first.
That's awesome. So another question is, what do you do to stay motivated in working towards inclusivity?
It's a lot of work. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It really is a lot of work. And I think that people of color, but honestly, specifically Black women, have carried this weight for a very long time. But I think, honestly, for me, I don't think that I'm tired a lot, but I don't think that I have the luxury to just be like, hands up, I'm done. I don't think I've earned that. And I don't think any of us should think that we have. I don't think that highly of myself or the work that I've done. And I think that, if my, whatever my ancestors dreamed for me, I should be going after that times 10. And so, yeah, it's very exhausting work, but I don't think that I've reached that point where I'm like, okay, well, it's in a better state so I can just be done. And this is, I honestly, I mean, this is the kind of work that we all have to be invested in for it to change. You have to be actively anti-racist. You have to be actively, anti all of these things for it to change. And so it's kind of never ending work, but it's work that feels good, which is important.
Absolutely get the worth it feeling from that. Another question is, what has been your biggest obstacle as a woman of color throughout your career?
I mean, the money thing that I talked about earlier, 100%. Because when I think, especially in fashion, people don't realize when you don't come from money, especially so specifically in fashion, you were required to look the part, dress the part, act the part, all of these things. That all costs money. And a lot of people, when I was assisting, a lot of people got opportunities just because they knew a certain designer or they were wearing head to toe designer, and a stylist would come in and compliment them on their outfit. And then they would be like, oh, you should just come to this shoot and you should just help me. And I'm like, I've been here since 6 a.m. busting my butt. What the heck? Like, it happened to me all the time. I swear to you, all the time. There were so many people who, I remember when I was an assistant, we had to sign cards every week to get paid on time. And I would like, and I remember 3 months in, I was like, nobody else is like on Friday afternoons to make sure that they're signed. Then I was like, oh, did you ever realize like I'm the only person like looking for her? Because she was always like all around the building and like run throughs and all this other stuff. And she was like, Lindsay, they're wealthy. That's why. I was like, oh, right. Like forgot money. And I think that, and that is a huge struggle because you have to get that privilege, that class, that elitism changes the game for a lot of people. But I think also, there's not a lot of women of color in the industry. And so you are often feeling really lonely and feeling kind of like, where is my place in this? And those have been, it's been really a big challenge. I think even now it's like, people talk about me being the only Black woman or the only woman of color in a lot of spaces, but it's really, that makes it a really lonely experience when you don't have people around you who have had similar experiences, who've had to, be in the role that you've been in before. And so that has both of those things, I would say, definitely have been a challenge.
Absolutely understand that. And on speaking about the challenge part of it, how do you practice self-care and unplugging? What keeps you grounded?
I think it's a lot of the way that my parents raised me. I think this is great work and I love it. But this is what I do. It's not who I am. I think there's so much more to Lindsay that I've yet to discover. I just turned 30, so I'm very excited to in my 30s now and discover what that means. But it's not, for me, it's like I stay grounded because I don't want to be rooted in just this job and I think a lot of times I spent the past couple years definitely glorifying the next phase of like, oh, like once I get to do this, then I'm going to be so happy. Or like, once I do this, it's going to be great. And really honestly rooting myself in gratitude in the now. Where I am now. It may not be the perfect place that I want to be, or it may not be the thing that's on your vision board, but finding that gratitude in the now, I think has been a really big thing for me to constantly remind myself of. How do I unplug? I like to cook a lot. Anything that like you have to move your hands and like not be on your phone is great. And I'm off of social media every weekend. So unless something newsworthy happens, or like the week of the election I was, but other than that, I'm not on social on the weekends, which is nice to not see everybody at brunch. Don't care.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. This has been such an inspiring conversation tonight. And I just hope everybody kind of keeps an eye on you, Teen Vogue, follow you. I think you're making such tremendous impact on the fashion industry and on young people. And I think you have so much more work to do. And, you know, I just so looking forward to seeing what's next for you. So
thank you all so much.
Yeah, and thank you for being part of our program tonight. And I want to thank all of our speakers, Anjali, Susanna, Ashlee, Kerry, and Donna, and to our entire Babson community who was able to log on to the call tonight. We can't wait to get back in person and be able to do this again next year, hopefully on campus and remote, hybrid. We love it. And so as we close out tonight's program, I want to introduce my colleague, Shakina Williams, who is our Senior Director of Global Initiatives here at the Center for Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership.
Thank you, Valerie. Val, I just want to give a special shout out to Val for all her leadership in coordinating this event. This has been amazing for Entrepreneurship Week. I want to thank our amazing speakers as well as demonstrating their entrepreneurial leadership in their unique way and sharing their personal stories with us this evening. I really enjoyed my time with you all, listening to the amazing conversations about being resilient and bold. And thank you, Ashlee, just for opening up and sharing with us your amazing story. I'd like to give a personal thanks to the Be Well Scholars and Win Growth Lab entrepreneurs present this evening. And also, just to remind everyone, See Well and Win Global has numerous initiatives that we're offering that will give you a lifetime of learning that educates and empowers women and inspire inclusive entrepreneurial leadership of all kinds. So please continue to follow us on all social media platforms, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shakina, and thank you to the entire audience and panelists tonight. Have a wonderful evening.